So what am I doing here is I'm visualizing the entire variation first, and then I'm making the move on the chessboard. Majority players, they just move the piece on the board. Rook into g6 seems interesting, so they just play it first, and then going forward they think, okay, now I'll somehow get the answer. Hello everyone, this is Hiram Bhagwat, and in this video we are going to understand what exactly is the right way to solve tactics, and what are some of the mistakes that you should avoid and things that you should never do when it comes to solving tactics. And for that we are going to use the platform chess.com, and we are going to solve Puzzle Rush Survival in chess.com. I will explain in detail what exactly is the right way to solve tactics effectively, which will ultimately help you in improving your chess to the next level. So with that, let us get started. Okay, so this is the Puzzle Rush Survival mode, where I'm going to solve some puzzles, and on the way I'm going to explain what are the right things that you should do while you're solving puzzles, and what are some things which you should avoid, which you should never do when you're solving chess puzzles. So with that, let me just click on the play button and let us get started. So in this Puzzle Rush Survival mode, if you don't know what is this Puzzle Rush Survival mode on chess.com, this is a mode where you get a lot of puzzles, and there are different types of puzzles. Sometimes you just have to win a small piece, sometimes you have to checkmate the opponent's king, sometimes you have to just save yourself from opponent's threats, and there can be numerous things that you have to do. Now, whenever you're solving puzzles, it doesn't matter which puzzle it is very important for you to remember that you should visualize the variation inside. Now, what do I mean by visualizing the variation? That means you have to see many moves ahead in your mind. Now, what most players do is they see a puzzle and they simply make a move. And they think, okay, here if I make a move, then my competitor will play the move and then I will think what to do next. However, that is not the right way to go about it. So first you need to understand that you need to use your visualization skills, and you need to calculate much moves deeper if you want to improve your calculation ability. So here the obvious move seems to be queen into c3, just capture the knight for free, and as you see, white will be a piece up here. If the king moves away, let's say king goes to f2 or e2, it's not scary, and if he plays queen d2, again I can at least take the queen, and after knight takes d2, black is winning, black is a piece up. So here the right answer is obviously just take queen into c3. Now he goes back. Now this is one move mate, so if it's one move mate, it's a no-brainer. So here I can play rook d5 and it's a checkmate, so I simply play rook d5, game over. Here again, after bishop e3 is again a no-brainer, queen into f3, I'm winning a full queen, free queen, I'm getting 9 points for free. I simply capture this. So some puzzles, initial puzzles, will be easier. Right now if you see, there are 3 puzzles which we have already covered. So the first 3-4 puzzles, first I can say 10-15 puzzles are easier, so we can do it quickly, but still we need to calculate variations. So here the knight is attacking the rook. Here the obvious move is we can play rook c1 check. Now again, we should not play rook c1 check just because we can play rook c1 check. We need to think deeper. We need to think, if I play the move rook c1 check, what move can my opponent play? So I can play rook d1 check, you can play rook d1, but we can simply play rook into d1 and that would be a checkmate. So rook c1 check, rook d1, rook into d1 mate. He plays queen c3. Now my opponent is trying to maybe capture the h3 pawn, but his rook is going to be hanging and that's a checkmate. It's a no-brainer. If it's a one move mate, don't think, just do the one move mate. Again, one move mate puzzle. I can just quickly do one move mate puzzle. So let's see how much can we solve. Now this puzzle, this is a very interesting puzzle. Here you require some calculation. Now if you don't calculate variations here, if you play some blind moves, this is not going to work. Okay, you need to calculate variations. You must calculate variations. So here always you need to first see what is your opponent's plan. So if you see here, the white player, his knight on f4, he is attacking the g2 rook and is also attacking the e2 rook, which is a little bit scary, little bit dangerous. So we need to make a list of interesting options. This is very important. Because most players, when it comes to playing chess, they just calculate variations randomly. They pick out random moves and they start calculating variations without any process, without any thinking, just as it is. So what you need to do is you need to have a process of calculating variations. So here, if you see, white has some interesting moves. The first move is rook into b2 check. That is one interesting move. And the second move is f2, trying to play f1 queen. So here the move rook into b2 is more forcing. So let's calculate rook into b2 first. So rook into b2. Now always ask yourself, how many options can white play? Don't assume that white will take the rook. After rook into b2, white can play the move queen into b2, that is one option, or he can play king c4, or he can play king a4. Now if rook into b2, now if he plays the move king a4, I can simply take rook into a2 and the queen is gone. And if he plays the move king c4, then I need to think, what can I do next? So this is very important, because if your opponent plays the right move, then it can be some issues for us. So for that reason, here if I play rook into b2, he will play queen into b2, rook into b2, king into b2, and f2 and f1 wins. So queen into b2 is rejected. The only option I need to take seriously is the move king f4. So let's say rook into b2, he plays king f4, and here I can also play the move f2. Okay, with the idea of playing f1 queen with a check. So that means this entire variation is winning for me. So I can simply go and take rook into b2. I can even play the move f2 here. However, if I play the move f2, I need to be careful. Let me see what he can do. If I play the move f2, white can play queen f8 can be played. If he takes the rook, still it's okay, because he will make a queen. And then where can the knight go? Knight can go to maybe g6. So let's just say if I play f2, knight into e2, f1 queen, he can play knight g3, attack the queen, and the game will continue. So the best move here is simply take rook into b2. Okay, now if you are having some issues with visualization, you must say like, but Hiram, this is so complicated. It is very difficult for me to visualize all the variations at once. Let me do one thing. Let me move the pieces on the board and let me see how it goes. However, if you do that, then you're never going to improve your calculation and your visualization to the next level. If you want to get the best results, all you need to do is you need to put the pieces on the board and solve the puzzles without moving the pieces on the board. And at the end of this video, I'm also going to do something special for you. I'm going to show you some of the testimonials, some of the examples where people have successfully improved their ratings following this particular system. So with that, let me just continue this. So after the entire thing, after we complete all the puzzles, let us go forward and let us see some testimonials. So here, black can play rook into b2, queen into b2, rook into b2, king into b2, and finally f2, and then queens. Okay, we win. Okay, now this is a no-brainer. Here you can take the queen, or you can play queen g2 mate. So we obviously go for the mate. Game over. Okay, this is again one move mate, so I'm just ignoring it. One move mate, you don't need to think too much. You can just do it at your pace. Now he played the move bishop b4, was next puzzle. The d2 knight is attacked. Now here I need to again think, how can I checkmate the black king, as the black king is very weak. So I have a move bishop h4, and it looks like mate, but it's not mate. Black has a couple of moves. He can play the move g5. I can take. He can play bishop e7, and I can take with the queen, and that is a checkmate. So I play bishop h4 check, g5, bishop into g5, and if he played bishop d7, I would have taken it. Okay, so a quick tip to improve your visualization. If you want to improve your visualization to the next level, what exactly should you do? You should solve puzzles every single day without moving the pieces on the chessboard. Solving puzzles is not bad. In some of my previous videos I've said like solving puzzles is one of the mistakes which players make. When I say that, what do I mean? Majority players, when it comes to solving puzzles, all they do is they solve puzzles by moving pieces on the chessboard, which is a huge mistake. What you need to do instead is you need to solve puzzles without moving the pieces on the board. If you do that, your calculation will improve for sure. So here, white can play rook into g6. That is one of the moves. Now again, I'm making a list. Here he played f6. Now the rook is attacked, the knight is attacked. I can play rook into f5. I can play knight into g6. Rook into g6, rook into f5, knight into g6. These are the three moves. I can play rook into g6. Now after he plays rook into g6, we have to consider moves. Rook into g6 looks like the most logical move. He can go king f8. He can go king h8. He can go king h7. And he can play bishop into g6. Now if he goes king h8 or king h7, I can simply play queen h4. It's checkmate, game over. Knight is supporting the rook after king h7, so he cannot take my rook. And that's the reason after rook into g6, if the king goes to h7 or h8, I can simply play queen h4 and that is game over. So he cannot go here. So after rook into g6, he can go king f8 or he can play bishop into g6. Now if he goes king f8, at the very least, I can play rook g8 check, and when he comes down here, king e7, I can play queen g7 mate. So what am I doing here is I am visualizing the entire variation first, and then I'm making the move on the chessboard. Majority players, they just move the piece on the board. Rook into g6 seems interesting, so they just play it first. And then going forward, they think, okay, now I'll somehow get the answer. But that's the wrong way. I will show you the wrong way as well going forward, how not to do. So stay tuned. So if I play rook into g6 here, he will take bishop into g6. Now queen into g6. Now he has two options again, king f8 and king h8. Now if he plays king f8, I can play queen f7 mate. And if he plays king h8, then I can play knight f7 mate. So for those who are confused, I'll move it on the board. Rook g6, bishop g6, queen g6, king f8, and now I play bishop queen f7 knight. Okay, fine. This is a one move mate, so it's a no-brainer. One move mate problems you can quickly solve and move ahead. Okay, this is another interesting puzzle. So white just played the move d4 and is attacking the e5 pawn. Now here we have numerous options. We can play the move f5. Oh, f5 is not possible because of the pin, sorry. He can play the move bishop f5. We can play e into d4 and we can play d5. So again, I'm making a list of moves. Here the move bishop f5 is the best. I can play the move bf5. And now the queen is trapped. The queen has no squares to go. And wherever it goes, my R pieces will capture. So simply capture. Okay. Another puzzle. Okay, so we see that the rook and the queen, they're attacking the g7 pawn. All we need to understand is how the mate is going to happen. If we understand that, the game will be over. So here I can simply take f into g7. Now he doesn't have a choice because I'm attacking the rook. He has to take the pawn. And once he takes the pawn, I have two options. I can play rook into g7 or I can play queen into g7. Now if I play the move queen into g7, he has only one option, that is king goes to e6, and when the king goes to e6, I can simply play rook g6 and that is a checkmate. So I take, and okay, the computer doesn't allow me to checkmate, but it's a checkmate. Okay, this is a no-brainer. This is again one movement, so I'll just do one movement. Okay, this is again a one movement. I can play queen f8, game over. So let me make it game over. Okay, this is again a very simple puzzle again. Here all we need to do is we can capture the queen. If you want, we can even continue the variation, but here getting a queen is enough for a victory. After that, we may checkmate the white king somehow. Maybe after knight into d4, king goes here. We can play queen e3 check is not possible. Okay. I don't know if there is a mate. Okay, if he goes king e1, I can play this check. That is knight c2 check. And after knight into d4, if he goes here, let's say king d1, then there are numerous ways to win. I can start with queen b5, b4 check, sorry, queen g4 check, and slowly convert the game. So just capture the queen for free. Okay, again, very common. Here there is no checkmate. All we need to do is we need to win a piece. We need to think about how I can win a piece. And here the easiest way to win a piece is simply play queen f4 check and capture the b4 bishop for free. So some puzzles, they don't require you to checkmate your opponent. All you need to do is simply capture opponent's pieces for free. You play queen f4 check and just capture this for free. Okay, plays d5. Now his idea is to capture my queen. So here I need to maybe capture his queen first and his bishop first. That is one of the options. I can take this, or I can simply play d into e5. That is another option. Or I could have played queen g6, but the bishop is hanging. So I can take this. What else can I play? Okay, so this problem is like we are already a piece up. All we need to do is maintain the advantage. If we maintain the advantage, we win the game. There are many such puzzles where all you need to do is just maintain the advantage. Whatever advantage you have, you just maintain it. So all I can do is I can just take here. Now if I take here, he has a lot of options. You can take e into f6, or you can play queen into e2. So two options. If you place queen into e2, then I can simply play d into e5. And he can take d into e5, queen into e5, and that would be okay. I need to still calculate on. So queen into e5, knight into e5, and after that he may play this move e1, which may be unpleasant. Okay, no worries. Okay, let's go back. He played the move e5. Okay, so one of the options is simply take bishop into e2, which is okay. If bishop into e2, queen into e2, I can even move the queen back. That is another way to go about it. Okay, I'm removing all the arrows. Okay, so queen into e2 can be an option. If queen into e2, I'll just move the queen back. I'll just pull the queen back to e7 and everything is fine. So that is not possible for white. So after bishop into e2, he has to take e into f6. Now I take bishop into d1. He takes f into g7. Now I play rook h7. Now he takes rook into d1, and I simply take rook into g7. Okay, and if we do that, we are a piece up. The black player is a piece up. That should be. I simply take rook h7, and that's done. Okay, one movement, no brainer, queen into g7. Just quickly do it. Another one movement, bishop e3, no brainer. Whenever you get a one movement, at that time you need to be fast, because there is no logic in thinking for long time. Just quickly finish it as fast as you can. Okay, so here I can play knight into f3. That is one possible move. Another possible move is we can play bishop into f3. Another move. We can play maybe bishop into a3. This is another way of thinking. So bishop into f3, bishop into a3, knight into f3, and we can play all these moves. So we need to calculate variations thoroughly. So till now, basically, if I just give you a quick overview, this is something completely different from what majority players do. What majority players do is they play the move first and then they start thinking. They think, okay, I'm going to play the move first, and then as it goes, whichever move I feel logical, I will play it first, and then I will solve the puzzles. And when they solve puzzles this way, in a real game, they're thinking the exact same thing. So what we need to do, if you want to improve your game in a real game, in a practical game where you are playing against a tournament player, at that time, if you want to apply this system, you have to use it at home. Whatever you want to do in a tournament, you need to do it at home. So here, the move knight takes f6 seems like the most logical. It's giving a check, it's doubling the pawns. So knight into f6, g into f6, can play queen into d1 check, king into d1, and then bishop into f3, and I can win the rook. So that seems like the best variation. There is no other way black can proceed. If it takes bishop into f3, g into f3 doesn't give him anything. Bishop a3, bishop into a3, bishop into a3 doesn't give him anything. So the best move is knight into f3, g into f3, queen into d1, king into d1, bishop into f3. Okay, this is done. Ooh, this is nice. So again, here we need to make a list of moves. As we see, there are a lot of things happening here. So we can play rook into e1, giving a check. We can play bishop into d4, giving a check. Or maybe we can play queen into d4. It seems strange, but still we should consider it for several seconds. So we have three logical candidate moves. By the way, if you don't know what is candidate moves simply mean number of options we have, number of interesting options we have, which are worth considering. So the most logical move seems to be rook into e1. I can simply take rook e1. He can take rook e1, queen f2 check, king h1, and then queen e1 is a checkmate. So simply take this. Okay, so by now I think you have already understood the technique, the order. Now what we are going to do, we have solved 23 puzzles till now, and going forward we are going to solve more puzzles. Let's see how many more puzzles can we solve. So I'm going to speed up now. You may think that this is a time consuming technique, but actually it's not. It's just because of my detailed explanation it is taking so much time. So we're going to solve the puzzles fast going forward. So let me show you how we can do it this in speed. So let us speed up this process and let me show you how we can do this quickly. So it's one move mate, no brainer. I checkmate the king. Okay, now here I see the bishop goes back. Now I can play knight into e4 or I can play the move g5. Knight into e4 move seems the most logical because it's the most forcing. Now after knight into e4, if he takes bishop into e4, I can take bishop into h4, knight into h4, queen into h4, and here black is winning. And after knight into e4, if he tries to take my bishop, I'll take his queen. He takes my queen. Now if you see here, the material situation is equal, but now I will take his knight. He takes my knight. Again material situation is equal, and finally I will take his bishop. So that is winning, but he plays bishop into e4. So I take. Okay, another puzzle. So let us think. Okay, so here I have a couple of moves. I can play queen f4 check. I can play bishop e5 check. I can. Okay, these two look like the most logical moves. Okay, so bishop e4 check. Now he has two moves, king h1, king h3. If he goes king h1, it's a no-brainer. We simply play queen e1 check, queen into f1, game over. And after queen e4 check, if he plays the move king h3, I can simply play the move queen g3 mate. So both moves are winning. So I simply play this, game over. Okay, this puzzle, let's see to do. Okay, so there are a couple of moves here. It's a check, so we have to either take h into g5 or knight into g5. The only two logical moves are possible here. So let's say we take h into g5, then he can play the move king h5. And now it's very important for us to wait and think. So all we need to do is we need to play the move rook h6 check in order to give the checkmate. But the knight is in between, so all we need to do is sacrifice the knight. So it into g5, king h5, knight g7 check, and check. Okay, another puzzle. We can play knight d6 check. We can play bishop into c6. We can play knight d6 check. Now if he goes king f8 or king e7, I can capture his bishop, but I need to be careful because my knight may be trapped. So I need to calculate variations thoroughly. So knight d6 check. Now if he plays king f8, I can play knight into b7. If he plays queen b6, I can simply take bishop into c6, and then I will pull the knight back. But the problem is, if I play knight d6 check, he can play king e7. And now if I take knight into b7, he can play the move queen b6, and here I need to think because there may be some issues, but I have figured it out. You can play queen d6 check, the king goes back, and I can capture on c5. Okay, so for those who didn't understand, let me show it on the board. So knight d6 check, I can take knight into b7. He can also play the move queen c7 here, but that is not very scary, because if he plays the move queen c7 here, then I can play bishop into c6 first. And now if queen into c6, I will play knight a5, and if he plays d into c6, I will play knight into c5. So I simply take, okay, he plays queen c7, I just take, and knight to a5. Okay, and I win. Okay, another puzzle. So we can play queen h4 check. Now if he goes king e7, queen f8, I can play queen f7 mate. And if he plays king e7, I can play king e2, I can play queen f2 check. King goes here, and I can play knight c5 mate. It's a very common mate. And after queen h4 check, the game is over. So there is no need of any other option. I have other options. I can play f into g6. I can play knight into f3. Many options are possible, but queen h5 is the best. So see, if you solve this way, the solving puzzles is not difficult. Believe me, solving puzzles is not difficult. It is only difficult because we make it difficult. We first play the move and then we start thinking. So all we need to do is we need to make the move only after we have calculated the entire variation. Okay, so here the bishop is attacked. Now I can take, or I can move the bishop away. Obviously queen into b4 seems more logical. So queen into b4. Now if he takes a into b5, that is a concern. Here we have to think what we should do. You can take queen into d2, rook into d2, maybe rook into f4. That is possible. So one of the ideas is just win a pawn on c4. That way we can work. Or what else can we play here? So another move is simply take this. This is not the best because bishop a4, ba4, queen b4 check, queen into b4, b4, and okay, possible, but I don't like it so much. Here, let's say maybe queen into b4 is a nice move. Now if it takes a into b4, we need to figure out. We can maybe take queen into b5. That is one option. Another option is simply take queen into e2. So both moves seem good. Okay. After queen into b5, he plays the move c3. I can simply take queen into b3. Oh, that is not a big deal. Okay. So he takes a into b5. Now we need to think. We can take queen into e2, or we can play queen into b5. Now if you play queen into e2, we can play rook into e2, rook into c4. That is winning. And if queen into b5, that is also pretty good. We are simply winning a pawn. But a better variation is queen into d2, rook into d2, and then play b5. Okay. So that way we win a complete piece. Okay, so we have solved 30 puzzles in this video. Now I think you've already got the technique. In the next video, I'm going to show you this in a speedy mode, like how exactly do I solve puzzles, and we're also going to see how many puzzles can we solve in total. So we're going to continue with the same puzzle in the next video. So till that time, stay tuned and start practicing these puzzles the same way as you're doing in this particular video. So with that, let us take a leave for today, and we'll meet you guys in the next video. Thank you. Bye bye.